Hello, everybody. I'm Randy Mills, your host for Sports History Now. We brought some amazing stories already to life, and today we have just a phenomenal story to share. We're going to talk about one of Kentucky high school basketball's truly all time greats. And to help us with that will be the son of Mike Redd. Our subject today will be Mike Redd, a Seneca Redskin graduate in 1963. Welcome, Victor. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you coming to us from the state of California. That's awesome. You may have to bear with me for just a moment, Victor, because I want to share some of your dad's amazing accolades and then hear from you in a firsthand way about the way he developed his basketball skills, certainly during his basketball life and beyond basketball life, and some of the family that he raised. As Mike was born in 1945, and we lost him as he passed away in 2007. So here's a little something about this gentleman whose name is Mike Redd. Now, Mike Redd was the first ever African-American Mr. Kentucky basketball in 1963, his senior year. He was a Scholastic Magazine All-American. He was a Parade All-American. He averaged 26 and a half points in his senior year, and he led his Seneca team to the 1963 state championship. And in fact, alongside some incredible teammates, we may mention a few of those names, but of course, one of the best known names was Wesley Unseld, with a record of 31-1. There are many Kentuckians who refer to the 1963 Seneca team as among the 2 to 3 very best high school basketball teams in the history of our state. Played for an amazing coach, Coach Bob Mulcahy. We'll talk a little about him. In fact, Mike was a 3-time All-State basketball player. Even as a sophomore, he led his team to the Sweet 16. Seneca won the 7th Region Championship, won their first game in the Sweet 16, and lost in the quarterfinal round. So he was a force. And I will tell you the truth, as we begin to chat about Mike, as a youngster growing up, and even to this day, when I bring up the name Mike Redd or somebody asks me about Mike, have I heard about him? I say, yeah, I've heard about him. In fact, those folks who were a bit older than me and who I cherish their insights into Kentucky high school basketball, there's one particular way they refer to Mike Redd. They say, Mike was Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan. Gravity-defying basketball player. That's part of who he was. Obviously, shooting it, rebounding it, but the leaping ability and the gravity-defying, I think, is where we kind of get around to that Michael Jordan comparison. Come on with us, Victor, maybe, and let's go back a little bit to his roots, if you will, because he didn't roll out of bed and lead Seneca to the state tournament in his sophomore year. He had been playing basketball growing up and everything. What were his roots, and are we talking some playground ball, or what did he share with you about his maybe love for basketball, 10, 11, 12 years old, some of that sort of thing? How did it all begin to come about?
Well, Mike, originally, just for the record, 44 was his year of birth, and as
Thank you
people
so
always
much.
think, he was not out of Louisville. Originally, our family, my grandmother, the late Miss Logan, she's actually from Newburgh, obviously in the subpart there of Louisville, and our father, Red, of Columbus, Ohio area. So them moving in together, establishing their family, we originally came from Frankfort, Kentucky, even
Oh,
before my time. And my earliest is kindergarten, first grade, second grade pictures of him out in Frankfurt for employment's sake. They moved out here to Louisville and then settling in Newburgh. And obviously, most of the history that I'm aware of in my time is coming out of Newburgh and living right there locally in Louisville. My father, obviously, in the playground, as many of our friends and family who come out of the nearby area in Louisville. But I think he was kind of just a product of his environment. I know 63, 64 was the cutoff time in regards to integration. And down there, I think things in that neighborhood, there's always been a division of some type. But I
Uh-huh.
think for the most part, just the culture in the neighborhood of the kids that he grew up with from as early as I was told, as far as middle school. Obviously, I think on his eighth grade year, I think he was on the freshman Frostoff team. I think was what we called it back then. But obviously, it was the first years of the integration of Seneca, going from middle school to high school and integrating that part. So I think him playing with, when you have to go ahead and play with a Wes Unseld and a George Unseld on the playground, you learn how to play with the big boys.
Well, that's right. That's right. And I do believe that, as you mentioned, that's a very much a historical fact when you think about that process of integration. And Mike actually did play varsity basketball as an eighth grader. I've read where he actually scored 25 points a
There
few
you go.
times over as an eighth grader, and I think even led that Seneca team to a record of 13-2. And then moving forward, like you'd mentioned, George Unseld, I believe, graduated in 1961. He was a first team All Stater along with Mike in his sophomore year. So what a crew! And so as he moved into high school, I wonder about some goals he may have set, or a lot of times, players of that caliber, they don't really even quite understand what they could accomplish. But did he speak about some of the early years, the freshman, sophomore years, and maybe even making it to the Sweet 16, or what a big deal that was for him as a sophomore, maybe opening his eyes to some possibilities?
Very much. Unfortunately, growing up under his realm, all the, when I was a boy your age, I had to get up and practice and shoot. And early before the first one in, the first one out, which, one always thinks as a son, he's like, oh, sure, Dad. Yeah, I'm sure you did. But at the same token, I understood that in speaking to some of his friends, classmates, and early friends of the family out there, I know that when he went out there, he was very commitful. I know that he put a lot of his father, my grandfather, Robert Red, there in Newburgh, buried there. But I say that because his brother was a big influence on him. That was he goes by Bob, Robert Red. But he was a Marine early back in 58, 59. So I think him coming back into the household presence and played a big part of Big Brother, being a Marine, having discipline, and just well noted at that time when he was trying to become and make a name for himself. His brother was in 59 out of Fern Creek. I just accepted his Hall of Fame as well
Mm,
out there through the county there. And he's a Creeker, as they go ahead and refer to him down there. But he was in the Marines as well, too. And I think coming home made a big influence and a kind of a father figure to my father as far as being disciplined, understanding, and had a great respect for the game as far as basketball.
right.
He also was not quite that far out, but he was a 58th. He was a pick in the draft for the 68th after my father, after he spent 4 years in Marshall. So I think the bar was set pretty high early in life. Therefore,
Yeah.
obviously, he knew what he had to do. And my grandmother had to go ahead and raise two. They tell me they were good boys, but I know otherwise. They were still boys. So
That's right. Well, he makes it to the Sweet 16 as a sophomore. And then in the 1962 season, of course, they had another fantastic team. There were many fantastic players in Louisville, no doubt. One of whom was a guy named Mike Silliman. You've probably heard your dad speak of Mike Silliman.
correct.
Mike, of course, graduated from St. Xavier High School in 1962, and Seneca had a heartbreaking 1-point loss in the regional championship game to St. X. And St. X went ahead to win the state tournament that year. And I would imagine that coming from that, he had a great deal of motivation going into his senior year. But can you reflect on any of that, some of those times, maybe the heartbreak of a junior year, or how he approached his senior year? Of course, he was a marked man. He had to work extra hard to get everything he could get, because now we're talking double teams and being the marked man. But can you remember some of those stories from his high school days and motivation to get a state championship?
Well, it's been incredible to go ahead and hear firsthand from what he's told me all of my natural life. And in the most recent later years, in comparison, speaking to his classmates, friends, fans, alumni members, and give me their account and their witnesses and be able to go ahead and kind of mesh them together. So I
Hmm.
know that, like anything else, he gave it 100%, and he raised the bar very high for even us as children, as I did for my children and his grandchildren. So I know that when his expectation of going out there to go ahead and be the best ball player, putting in the shots, putting in the time on the floor, practicing, and I know that he had 101% support at the time from his mother, Miss Susie Logan of the Kiros there, and she was very much, on bending foot to go ahead and make sure he had what he needed to go ahead and go to school
Hmm.
as a single
Hmm.
mother. So I know that she did a very good job in regards to. We always lean on grandma in the sense of raising two young gentlemen as she did. But my father really put, I think, an influence on regards to, well, there's these really great guys in the neighborhood, playing with Wes, playing with George, and obviously quite a few others there on his team that were able to go ahead and shoot, practice, and play with him. And I think
Hmm.
just playing there at the middle school, playing there before, after, at the park, locally, as well as the school, and being able to be so graceful in what he did and how he did it. I
Hmm.
always heard all the different roamings of some of the first beginnings of doing a slam dunk, for an example. And I say that just because, obviously, as a freshman going in, he shared a story with me in regards to him and going out for a tryout with Western Kentucky, being one of the first two African Americans as brothers to sign, Robert Bob Red as well as Mike Red, and my uncle had made a commitment to Marshall already, and at that time afterwards, my dad found out he doesn't get to start. Back there, the freshman rule was in play, so
Yes.
not going to go ahead and go to Western. And another great Clem the Gem Haskins beat him to the original signing and being able to go ahead and actually start and play, and who had a great successful years
Sure.
there. But I say that just because the stories of him, from the top of the mark of the key, um, ball being bounced one time, him elevating himself up to the top of the key in the rim and being able to go ahead and stuff the ball. And is really
Right.
incredible when you look at and see it in comparison now at only 6'2" and a half, which he fought for that
Hmm.
half. Not being a big 6'7" or a 6'8" like some of the other guys, but as we say now, he had hops.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's probably where the legend kind of began to take off with, as we say, the gravity defying moves. In his high school years, I noted that his overall high school record was 109 wins and only 14 losses. And we're going to come back and
Right.
talk a little bit about that senior year, too, and winning the state championship. But I also want to mention something of his high school basketball coach, who was Bob Mulcahy. Um, what information about Coach Bob Mulcahy did your father relay to you about playing with a gentleman who went on to be an assistant basketball coach at the University of Kansas? I know he was the head basketball coach at Eastern Kentucky University as well. And I think it's very fortunate when a super talented player can connect with and be fortunate enough to play for a really high level basketball coach such as Coach Mulcahy. Did he speak a little bit about that relationship?
Oh, yes. Many times when I complained coming back from high school about the coach this and coach made us run, coach made us do this. And he gave me many comparisons of stories, obviously, over the years and him growing up and him playing and participating. And I say that just because, as I mentioned, my grandmother raising him was a single mother. And between her and my uncle, she was disciplinary in the family. So I think my uncle Bob, as I referred to him, he was very much a kind of a big brother and basketball love, and they got to work together, play together to that degree. But I think when it came to school, and obviously some type of mentoring that he needed, he looked to the coach. And I think
Hmm.
as far as aside from being able to make your bed, make those shots, practice, listen, run. I know that he did some track running as well too early in life there at school. So as a track star, believe it. So I think that's where he got a lot of his kind of run and gun from, being able to
Uh-huh.
go ahead and fortunately receive that ball from Mr. Unsell and be able to go ahead and stuff the ball. But a lot of it was just running and gunning. And I think all the coaching before, after, even after school, after hours. I couldn't help but notice, even in the parade picture there, you see my grandmother with the coach and his wife. And just so you know, who I'm still very dear friends with, had met the coach several times in my visits to
Wonderful.
Louisville. He's given me some personal, wonderful clips and told me some encounters that he had with my father. And yeah, really love him.
That's fantastic. Well, let me share with you what among other remarks that Coach Mulcahy attributed to your father, knowing of the long and wonderfully successful coaching career that Coach had. He stated,
Correct.
"People ask me who are the best three players that I ever had a part in coaching. Number one is Mike Redd. Number two, NBA Hall of Famer Wesley Unseld. And number three, tremendous guard at Kansas, JoJo White." And he said when he was at Kansas, he made the comment that Mike Redd was a 6'2". Let's give him that half inch,
There
six
you
two
go.
and a half inch Oscar Robertson. But to heap praise such as that on your father, no question, he was absolutely the real deal. Uh, in terms of winning the state championship, which would be a highlight in anyone's life, myself growing up in Kentucky, dreaming of playing in the Sweet 16, never having that opportunity. But
Mhm.
golly, that's our dream when we grow up as Kentucky high school basketball players, and to win the Sweet 16, make the all tournament team, of course, most valuable player, and to be Mr. Basketball. Just share with us just a little bit about what you think that meant. And historically speaking, and I think a lot of times we don't really even see colors and worry about all that. He probably may not even been aware of the fact that he was the first African American Mr. Kentucky basketball. But as time passes, that does become a big deal.
Mhm. Yes, yes, indeed. Many times in looking back at, it's one thing when you go ahead and hear dad, well, I used to play basketball. I used to this. I'm like, sure, dad. Sure. Uh huh.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. You used to be able
right.
to dunk a basketball. Sure. Uh huh. But after running into people kind of randomly, many times over the years, I had the blessing to be able to go ahead and come back home. I was born myself in Louisville, and I didn't have the pleasure to go ahead and attend Seneca High School, but my sisters did. And a lot of
Okay.
pickups, drop offs, encountering school classmate teachers, and just being able to go ahead and hear those stories of, wow, your dad used to be this and do this, and he used to be able to pick this up, and that type of attention was really something to where, just I mean, overall, his Mr. Kentucky basketball. I've been in Saint Dié, France, in Paris. I've been in Austria, thanks to my father. And people talk about basketball, and then they go ahead and talk about Kentucky, and then, my father brings up, hey, I'm also 1963 Mr. Kentucky basketball. And then I am able to kind of put two and two together to realize, oh, dad, this is why you play in Austria, or this is why we played in France, and that kind of thing. So people, obviously, in international global sports. And then obviously, I think when you say basketball, it's almost, you think Kentucky and you think Kentucky basketball, and to see that you're one of the first or one of the pioneers of the game in that unique market, and as much as a big role it plays, I think it played throughout his life. Obviously, that kind of propelled him into college and NBA draft and
Right.
AAU and the Marines and so forth.
For sure. I want to set the tone a little bit about that 1963 class. I've often reflected on those years, and I think that in the 1960s, we had some of the greatest basketball players ever in the state of Kentucky. I mean, just an amazing roll call of outstanding players. And stop and think about the 19. Well, let's go back to 62 first. In 1962, he's an All-Stater along with Larry Conley, Rups Runts, Clem Haskins. He and Mike were the only two juniors on the 1962 All-State team, and of course, Clem went on to be the number 3 draft pick in the NBA draft. And you have Mike Redd and you have Mike Silliman. And then we want to take a look at some of these outstanding players in 63. But we mentioned Mike Silliman, and I know that we're going to get around to talking about your father Mike's AAU playing days when he traveled and toured with the military team.
Correct.
Mike Silliman was also on that team with your father, so I'm sure he spoke a lot about Mike, and they were good buddies and certainly rivals in high school with Mike being a year older. And just for the record, of course, Mike Silliman had suitors all around the country and could have gone anywhere in America, but when all was said and done, he cast his lot with Bobby Knight. And played at the U.S. Military Academy. And just a quickie on Mike, my brother David had occasion to speak with Bobby Knight a few years back before Coach Knight's passing. And, Coach Knight didn't like Kentucky a whole lot. He mentioned to my brother, he said, well, I don't have a whole lot to say about Kentucky, but he said, here's what I'll tell you about Mike Silliman. He said, Mike Silliman was the best post player that I ever coached during the course of my career. How amazing is that? And certainly Mike was sharing that spotlight with Mike Silliman without question. But now quickly at 63, and sorry for dominating for just a couple minutes, but I want to toss these names out here, okay? Because your father was Mr. Kentucky basketball. And here were some of the All-Staters on that team, 63. Clem the Jim Haskins, Dwight Smith, Tom Hendricks, a 3-year starter with the University of Tennessee. A guy, Billy Chumbler, Lowe's High School down in Paducah area. He went to Mississippi State, played for the great Babe McCarthy, and then transferred to Murray State and had a good career. Wayne Chapman. Kentuckians know Wayne as Rex Chapman's father. Wayne began at the University of Kentucky, then had a stellar career at Western Kentucky University. A guy named Wes Unseld was on that all-state tournament team, who we know went to the University of Louisville and NBA stardom. Also Charles Taylor from Owensboro High School, who was a great player at Kentucky Wesleyan. But among all these players, without question, hands down, Mike Redd was Mr. Kentucky basketball and the number one vote getter on all state tournament teams. So as we say, with what some of these guys did, hey, Mike Redd was right there and even above all that in talent in his high school year. Before we leave Seneca and kind of get your dad beyond Seneca High School, I want to know if he mentioned one more famous classmate of his with you. Now, she didn't play basketball to my knowledge, but her name is Diane Sawyer. Right. Now, Diane Sawyer was America's junior miss, not just Kentucky junior miss, but America's junior miss when she was at Seneca. And as we know, she went on to a fabulous journalism career with NBC, ABC. This is the Diane Sawyer we're talking about. And my research tells me that she, as a Seneca High School graduate, was your father's academic tutor. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I always figured my dad to be, as what I called in my day, was a jock. And after looking through the many times, and I have a copy of a yearbook, obviously being most athletic and so on, and obviously experiencing and being able to go and interact with his classmates, I should say. Obviously, yes, that is very much true. And obviously, I know times were different back then, but I followed her, and I've seen some of her follow-up stories on her return home to Louisville, and she's mentioned my father and Wes and her experiences there at Seneca High School and being Kentucky and her background. But yes, that is true, very much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You think about all the paths that your father has crossed over the years. So then it came college decision time. And I can only imagine that he had suitors from all across the country. I don't know if he kind of wanted to stay a little bit closer to home or how it was. And you mentioned that he'd initially thought he might go to Western Kentucky University, but many of our astute listeners are going to know that I believe 1974, was the first season that college freshmen could compete on varsity teams at the Division I level. So obviously coming out in 1963, if he had gone to Western, he would have been on the Western Kentucky University freshman team. And as a fierce competitor, I think he said, I want to play varsity ball right off the bat. And he chose to attend Kentucky Wesleyan. Do you have any insight into that time frame or maybe some of the options that he would have had?
Certainly, and I think he wanted to go ahead and kind of spark off while he's hot, as they'd say, as they do very much now. Obviously, in today's world of market of basketball and the NBA and going pro, when you're hot, you're hot. And coming off the senior year at Seneca, obviously championship, even another accommodated by Mr. West Unseld in '64, back to back per his coach. So obviously coming from all that, and I think he was a mama's boy. He wanted to stay home near to Kentucky, near mom, near brother. But I think at the same token, he wanted to play, and I think
Hmm.
and very grateful he was to go ahead and be extended. And seeing the clippings of him from being a potential hilltopper, him and my uncle, and going down there, being signed. I spoke to people like Mr. Chapman, Wayne Sr. I've met him at a
Okay.
couple of engagements, and he's given me an autograph over here, coincidentally, one of the greatest basketball players I've ever met, which means a lot to me, coming from his son, as we know, as Rex. But just being able to go ahead and have that experience, go down there, played a little summer ball, met these guys, played
I
with
see.
them, and I think the reality started kicking in closer to school time starting, and that he wasn't going to play. And obviously, he wanted to go ahead and kind of capitalize on that. And fortunately, with the blessing, I know the University of Louisville and UK were out of the picture at the time because it was a little early. It was '63, and there
Yes.
hadn't been much. Obviously, West was only second or third the next year in '64 to go to University of Louisville, and I don't think UK didn't happen until later on. So, fortunately, he was given a blessing and opportunity to become a Panther, Purple Power, and obviously being able to go ahead and go to currently now, obviously in Owensboro, but to go ahead and be a Panther and Westland. I mean, they got him to start Division II, and I don't think he never knocked it. So just in growing up, being able to obviously the close similarities, the pride, being able to go ahead and play for Kentucky. And going to play with obviously Charles, for an example, good friends
Yes.
of family with, and relations
Wonderful.
and ties with them. So that came very well. And obviously, quite a few of the other players you mentioned there, we all have ties and children, siblings, and coachings, and so forth, and being able to go ahead and engage in each other. But I think being able to go ahead and start that meant a lot to him and to further
Hmm.
on in his career. So Division II, Kentucky Wesleyan, and blessed with the opportunity to go ahead and start there with some of the greats that came out of there in that time of Mr.
Absolutely.
GT George. Yeah,
Yeah, no doubt. And he played superbly well and obviously started as a freshman on a tremendous basketball team. He averaged 20.7 points a game as a freshman, 6.8 rebounds as a freshman. And here's one for the record books. Kentucky Wesleyan played the University of Louisville varsity basketball team. So Kentucky
correct.
Wesleyan goes into Freedom Hall and plays Louisville. The halftime score is Kentucky Wesleyan 39, Louisville 34. The final score is Louisville 77, Kentucky Wesleyan 71. They eke out a victory primarily because a freshman named Mike Redd scored 33 points. Mike Redd, as a freshman for Kentucky Wesleyan, scored 33 points against the University of Louisville in a narrow 77-71 loss. I don't think I need to say any more. Could have played
There
college
you go.
basketball successfully at a super high level anywhere in America, without question. Just amazing, and I think that's why over the years, these great basketball minds continue to talk about Mike Redd and who he was and what he was. Here's the deal. Mississippi State's great coach, Babe McCarthy. Here was his remark. He called Mike Redd the best college freshman basketball player he had ever seen. I can't imagine as a son. That's a lot to take in, isn't it? Wow.
Oh,
But I bet he
definitely,
stayed
definitely.
humble, but, I mean, it's a lot to take to stop and think, "That's my dad? Wow."
There you go. This is the same person who used to let me go ahead and win in basketball around the world on the court, but so that says a lot for him, his character, and obviously, as I mentioned, just in growing up and hearing his stories and his versions, and then being able to go ahead and relate them and tie them into people and some of the greats that I've spoken to, a lot of his classmates, to hear such praise from other people, players, coaches. Over the years and since his passing, I've reached out to quite a few of them. So quite a bit of the names that you mentioned, example, everyone on his
Uh-huh.
AAU team, I've reached out to and made attempts to spoken to, build relationships with. Unfortunately, some of them have passed on,
Uh-huh.
given the time factor. But just be able to go ahead and know, you know, we used to go ahead and we went and played in this certain place, and we played in this country, and went to go, buy hot dogs, and came back and visit the town. As some of the things that I heard back, but obviously some of the things, in case after him coming back there, we actually, my great claim to fame is that when my mother was born there in Louisville, Mike was trying out there for the Colonels, and I say that because Mr. Artis Gilmore, number 53
Uh-huh.
there, and him and my father were in the midst of starting a small business operation downtown Louisville, and in his attempts to go ahead and try back out, coincidentally, I was coming to play. My mom was pregnant with me, and on my birthday, July 9th, I was gone ahead and taken into the hospital by the A train, and I was born. So I say that just because it's just the ties that you meet and build along the way. I mean,
Right.
there's been quite a few times when we lived in my father play later on in Austria and Europe. You have these random 7-foot guys coming through your house, like, Dad, who is this?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's great. Well, here's another true story. Let's begin to take Mike from Kentucky Wesleyan and why you feel that he made the decision to leave and join the military. But let me tell you something. Last week, golly, a week or so ago, I was at the new University of Kentucky football coach Will Stein's press conference. Okay, uh,
Okay.
and my wife actually began to engage in conversation with some gentlemen sitting behind her, and she mentioned that her husband is working with a Sports History Now podcast and bringing to life some of the greatest stories among high school athletes and beyond as well, with an emphasis on high school athletes. And these folks said, "Well, we get together a couple of mornings a week in Louisville for breakfast," and said, one thing we're wondering about, and your husband might want to look into." He said, "We always say to each other every now and then, we'll say, 'Well, I wonder whatever happened to Mike Red.' They wonder where Mike Red went on to and what he did because he was such a big name. Uh, but them with going to the military and all. So isn't that amazing? I mean, it's just factual. These guys, that's the name they brought up when they heard about a Sports History Now show. They said, we want to hear about Mike Red. And my brother was there too, and David actually stepped in and started mentioning that he had developed a relationship with Mike's son. So Victor, without saying any more, tell us kind of he decided to step away from Kentucky Wesleyan and then get your dad into the military, and let's go on into some of his younger adult years, if you will, and help people understand where and what Mike Red did during that time, which would be starting around 1965 or so, I think.
Correct, correct. Well, I think a little bit came after that, came the reality of, and I know I felt we all felt the pressure as I put on my children now, as far as, well, after high school, you're going to college.
Uh-huh.
And I think he felt that pressure. I think he kind of had it the easier way because he had the gift of basketball. But I think after the freshman year, I think it was a little bit more awakening that, hey, there's some homework, and I no longer have Miss Sawyer to help me, kind of situation. Got to keep up on the
Sure.
books here. There you go. So I say that just because in his experience there, and I've been a welcomed member of the alumni and friends and family and coaching and the team of Westland. And as you probably know, my father is the one member honored for 1963 out of the past 100 years of an event that happened, oh gosh, it's been almost 9, 10 years now at Westland. all-century player, and
Yes, indeed.
I had the honors of being able to go ahead and make it down there and have a piece of the floor of the old gym there
Super.
that they gave to me. And as being for 1963, obviously coming in for Mr. Kentucky basketball. Um, as you mentioned about the game, as far as happening in his hometown in Louisville, I was told the whole second level, top level was for him
Hmm.
playing there. I have a clipping here
Wow.
with the obviously Westland, Kentucky on his chest, playing the home and in his home stadium, which I refer to as right down the road from where he grew up and played. And I know they have different names of it, but Freedom Hall on the Armory
Yes,
and
indeed.
everything else right over there, but right down the way. So playing there was a homecoming to him. And I think the experience of high school really kind of pushed him. He came home from Owensboro, and I know that he actually did a small, as we refer to as a stint, in regards to at Sullivan, local. And that was, I believe now they refer to as more of a business type college there out of
Mm-hmm.
Louisville. But apparently they had a program back in the day. And I know my father was there for another year there. And I think he really kind of did a little soul searching as far as his love for basketball, what he could do, continue his education. And I think at that time, he ended up looking for guidance back from his brother. And
Mm-hmm.
I think from 65 into 66, to the best of my knowledge, things were starting to happen in the world. And I know that he wanted to go ahead and be able to, his brother was a Marine. And so he served, I believe, 3 years. So it was
Uh-huh.
opposite for him. He went from high school, Fern Creek, became a U.S. Marine for several years, came back home, and he gave some guidance to my father. And I think within that time, opportunities such as the draft in the U.S. Marines, going into the service, he had some choices, and I know that went through nearby. I still have some great ties there, but down in Campbell, Kentucky, down south,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he was an armory, so he actually did a tank. He was a sergeant for a tank commander, and ended up making a decision of being a draft member of the 54th pick to the Boston Celtics, or obviously a forcible draft, as we would say now, to go ahead and be in the service. And I think with his big brother being a U.S. Marine, and in all fairness, our late father as well too, being in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Army, he passed away in 45 coincidentally as well too. So I say that just because he took the Marine outlet and went to serve his
Mm-hmm.
country, and I think that could have had a big change in play had he stuck it out and found another team and that kind of thing
Sure.
there. But I think very much he wanted to go ahead and serve like his father and his brother did. I think his skills there were very much recognized there with the service as well. I believe he did 1, 2 years of in Vietnam in a tank in the jungles. I've heard the stories, and
Yeah.
he didn't like the heat. He says he didn't like snakes either, as well too. But you you do what you have to go ahead and do in a wartime
Yes.
situation. But I think the service caught on. They made him an honorary member, in which he became on to out of Quantico, and that's the U.S. Which I guess at that time was the AAU team selection, which was the
Mm-hmm.
All Armed Forces, and that's how
Yes.
he got on the Quantico team and all the team members that you mentioned there, and was able to go ahead and see the world. Obviously, as one of the things they promise you when you go ahead and get recruited. But he was able to go ahead and I've heard stories of them traveling all over the world and playing in different armories and different bases and playing basketball and being in rather uh, South American countries, etc., playing basketball and
Uh-huh.
having the experiences and culture. So I think that had a lot to do further on in his love for food as well as traveling. I know people didn't always perceive my dad as being maybe the smartest, but obviously very well cultured. He was able to go ahead and speak obviously English, but obviously later on moving into like myself, being able to go ahead and speak different languages. So I know he spoke all
Wow.
Francais, he spoke Deutsch, German, Austrian. He's a Swahilian in the family. He speaks many different
Uh-huh.
cultures and different languages, but I think that really led him to go ahead and get up into the being able to come back later after the Marines and be able to go ahead and try out for the home team.
Yeah, that's really cool. On that armed services team, of course, they put together a heck of a team. I'm sure led by Mike Red and Mike Silliman. Kentuckians can be proud of that, and won actually two AAU national championships in 1969 and 1970. Just again, testament to his basketball abilities, but also want to reiterate what you have just said. What a wonderful testament to his love of country and the fact that he chose to serve his country. So I'm thinking that there used to be, I guess, NBA draft years, I think. So if he graduated high school in 1963, then he was draftable into the NBA in 1967. So just think about this. In 1967, he hadn't played basketball for a couple of years, and yet folks had tabs on him at the highest levels of the NBA. In fact, Red Auerbach and the Boston Celtics. So I think it's kind of cool that in 1967, the Boston Celtics went ahead and said, let's try to lock him up. He's in the military, but we're going to go ahead and draft him with the 52nd overall pick in the NBA draft. So he really couldn't try for an NBA team until he left the military, which was in about 1970. And you might have a remark or two about that, but just from my readings, I will say that Red Auerbach, the great Boston Celtics coach, said, hey, it's not fair to a young man. Said you can't transition out of the military yesterday and come out and play in the NBA tomorrow, because a term he used, he said he was kind of all muscled up, kind of muscled up from being in the military and that kind of thing. But what a talent, and the Boston Celtics recognize that. Are you kind of aware of that story?
Oh yes. Always been, I think, a big connection between Kentucky and the organization as far as the Boston Celtics. I know that from the players and coaches who I've spoken to, that was the first year that the great Bill went ahead and became not only a player but a coach, and was looking for. Obviously, they
Bill
just lost,
Russell,
I think,
thank you,
one championship. There you go.
thank you, Bill
And
Russell.
wanted to go ahead. Oh yes,
Yeah.
wanted to go ahead and kind of integrate and get young talent involved. They were back to back to back to championships, and they had missed 1 or 2 years there, and they were looking to kind of freshen up. It's one of those things that just obviously it's always to be an honor to be a 54th pick to the Boston Celtics. And obviously in that class and in that range, I mean, you have quite a few people. Um, Even kind of touching on there, one or two of them went to the Warriors. One or two of them, we all know about the great movie that came out as far as a certain coach down in South Texas and being playing the UK. And I mean, it's one of those things that, hey, had someone like my father, 67, gone ahead and been on a UK team, would have kind of
Yes.
changed history, not playing an
You
all
better
African
believe it.
American.
I've thought about
There
that
you
quite
go.
often. That would have changed history. Yes,
There
indeed,
you
it
go.
would have. Thank
There
you.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, like I said, just in regards to the Boston Celtics, always a great pride there. Great fan of myself. Still my team, coincidentally, despite living here in
Cool.
California. But there's always been a many ties as far as players, generationally, coaching. I was able to go and meet Mr. Ramsey just recently at
Cool.
a honoring down in E Town, and before he passed away, was able to go ahead and
Hmm.
see those beautiful rings on his fingers, and
Nice.
we shared some experiences, and he told me some about the coaching, on the mindset, what they were looking to go ahead and do. Unfortunately, my father is in Vietnam, but they did give him a tryout and coming back, so
Yes.
that was always
Yeah.
much respectable.
Well, I'm amazed by all the connections you've had. I mean, again, let's say that was Frank Ramsey. He was obviously played on the University of Kentucky national championship team out of Madisonville High School, and was the famous Boston Celtics sixth man for many of their NBA titles. And how cool just that so many of those doors open to hear of the stories and the advice from individuals such as a Mr. Frank Ramsey. So your dad goes on though and plays for quite a while in France, right? Professionally, and even kind of starts a basketball school in Austria. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, so I was born in '71, and after being only living there about a couple weeks, I actually went ahead and my father and my mother at the time, and I was the only child at the time. We went ahead and moved on to Europe while my dad was hot, came back from Vietnam, didn't make the colonels, but sure enough, while he was hot and still young, wanted to go ahead and
Uh-huh.
play his passion. So I think when he couldn't find it in the NBA, and obviously his time out serving in the service exhausted college opportunities back then. Like you do now, you go play elsewhere in different markets in Europe. And his first years, first 5 years, were actually in Austria. And we played in a small. He played. We lived in a small town referred to as Hofkirchen in Austria. My sister was actually born there. She was born there in '75, and he did a combination of played with Wells as well as in Vienna. So that was
Okay.
his. Played for Coach Schaffer out there, and was a big sponsor. I think he had 2 or 3 teams. And remember seeing as a child, finally being able to go ahead and see my dad in some games. Cold winters, and we lived not too far from the great, what we call here, the former California governor. But obviously, living in Austria, he was Mr. Universal becoming of
Yes.
there. So
Yes.
we weren't too far from him, and
Uh-huh.
being there for a couple of years. And I don't think it was until my sister was born and my father made it back in '75, '76. He actually
Okay.
got the equivalent of a tryout for the AAU team. He was on the Austrian team. I just got a postcard here, and he went there for training. Quite frank with you, after looking at the playoff list and the contention, they didn't have much of a chance, but they had my father. But obviously, it takes more than just one man for the whole team there. But in the Austrian team, and that was kind of their pre-Olympic, I think, in '76 there. So,
Uh-huh.
but that was a great experiences there, and obviously, being able to come back home and California and Louisville. My father's brother, Bob, he coincidentally, as I mentioned, was a young Marine backwards, then went into Marshall, had great success, NIT, played with a couple of brothers who played in Italy and used to coach professionally here at the Lakers. Not to name drop, but I say that just because he played with both brothers, excuse the pronunciation, D'Antone brothers. And sure enough, he played with the younger and the older end up coaching, but he actually ended up going to France and played obviously in Italy as well in coaching. But Bob spent 68, drafted to the Knicks, didn't make the team, had some great players come out of the draft at that year, and like wanted to go ahead and move on. And I think it's probably where my
Right.
father got the idea and concept to go to Europe. He went to France, and that's where my father kind of followed, going to Austria. And my uncle had great success in France, coincidentally, played in the Première Division first, played in Saint-Dié, Epinal, Strasbourg, Mulhouse, which would be the eastern part near the Alzars there. And
Uh-huh.
my father, for a short one season, and my uncle got to play together
That's cool.
towards the end, which was a really great experience for 2 local boys coming from Seneca High School and Fern Creek to go ahead and play together.
Absolutely. And were you able to attend your father, of course, going into the Kentucky High School Athletic Association Dow Harris Hall of Fame? Do you recall that event?
Oh, that's correct, sir. Yes, I was. We were fortunate enough and blessed. Um, that year, my own son, Michael Robert Red II, he was a young boy. It was one of the first times him, my father, back in Louisville, all together, and still have the video clipping of it. But it was a great engagement, great
Uh-huh.
event, and all of my sisters, all of us got to go ahead and go attend, make the trip, and be able to go ahead and see some wonderful clippings and follow up in regards to some of things that we didn't know, and speak to other people who knowed, played
Mhm.
with, had engaged with my father as a
Mhm.
classmate, a player, etc., and to hear the remarkable stories and some of his great
Uh-huh.
accomplishments. But it was definitely a great honor, and also got to meet a lot of greats as well there too. Still active, coaching, retired, playing now. And
Right.
fortunately, I'm still blessed enough to go ahead and see them every now and then in a couple events here and
Super.
there over the years, but it was definitely a great experience and a great honor to go ahead to him. Obviously, express his gratitude for his city of Louisville, where he's coming from, of Newburgh, as well as to be able to go ahead and represent Louisville in Kentucky.
Absolutely. You've mentioned a couple of sisters a time or two. Could you share with us your father's family, just the names of your siblings and uh,
Certainly.
expectations that your father had for his children?
Oh, there you go. Very much. And I'm sure I'm a product of it in divertly, but I have 2 older brothers, and I say that just because one just recently passed. Unfortunately, my My big brother, next one up, we'll be having services for him coming up, but he just passed away last month. Had
Yeah.
some heart issues, and he just recently passed here in San Jose. But he met his mother, and my father met in the Marines, obviously.
Okay.
So obviously, way back even before my time there.
Uh-huh.
But he went by BB. But sure enough, his mother passed fairly recently, and obviously my father's passing. But BB's here, has been in San Jose. I have a big older brother, as I like to refer to him, and he's out of Louisville. And just to show you where the bloodline, he's actually one of the AAU coaches of the year about several years ago, out of Las Vegas. And I know he's had some children, two beautiful nieces that I have that have played basketball. And
Uh-huh.
he's out there in the Las Vegas, kind of the hot rush right now as far as the ladies team,
Yes.
as well. He taught a girls team as well out there. Boys, he's been in recruitment as well too out of there. So I know he takes a lot of pride, and he'll be watching this as well to go ahead and know
Yes,
in regards
indeed.
to our father and aspiration. But those are my two big brothers that I had. On the very
Yes.
opposite side, I'm kind of the in between and the buffer, and I have two younger sisters, and both of them attended Seneca High School. Lived out there as well, and one followed in Dad's footsteps and became a chef. My sister
Oh, cool.
Aria, and she loves food as well. I think her and my dad kind of got together and made some of the changes. And my dad actually owned several restaurants in the coming Salt and Peppers in Nashville, Michael's International here in San Jose, California. We've all taken turns of washing dishes and serving, so I can speak from experience there. And in case they don't know, he actually had a place down there in Newburgh back in 92, 93, right there on Popolova Road, coincidentally on Bardstown Road out there. And we had a great establishment going on there when my sisters attended Seneca High School. They got the softer side of Seneca too. They didn't have to run as hard. So they did tell me that. So
Right.
but my baby sister, Michaela, she's actually been a career woman, professional. Went to Seneca as well, further her career on as well too, and she works out of the LA market and does a lot of the big travel events, tourism industry.
Cool.
She works on quite a few big things, such as the Olympics. She's working on now.
Uh-huh.
Worked on getting the NFL team from the Chargers. Working the LA. She's done everything from the Celtics parade to the Lakers events and parades in the years
That's
past,
neat.
run Staples Center.
Yeah.
So moved on to be career. And I think we've all kind of dad raised the bar to be the best and do whatever you can do and to make it your own. I always feel that I'm kind of short of that there because I'm 6'2", was 6'3", but getting there. But I didn't pursue the basketball career. Fortunately, I did work close with my father growing up, and worked in all his endeavors from the restaurants, and
Uh-huh.
did quite. He actually established a local newspaper here, just so you know, a weekly
Okay.
minority paper, which he used to kind of phase off the Louisville Defender before my time,
Uh-huh.
but he had a minority publication on Wednesday and
Okay.
Sundays here that I worked for him. So having press credentials and covering all different types of events, and being able to go ahead and put a newspaper together here for several years, as well as the entertainment company that we had. So we used to manage multiple different artists as well too. Did a lot of travelings. Fortunately, I came thanks to my dad as a traveler, being able to speak different languages. So I work well working with our record companies here and traveling
Uh-huh.
New York, Chicago, Texas, LA,
Wow.
you name it. But obviously, I think he raised the bar for all of us to go ahead and do the best that
Yes.
we can provide and take care of our own. So
Well, and I'm glad you could share all of that with us and about your family because sometimes when people say, well, now, what's a little bit of the Mike Red story? Well, I think a good bit of it as we move on into all of those years is he really had an entrepreneurial spirit, didn't he? Golly, all the things you've mentioned that, with the restaurant business, chef, the newspaper, the entertainment business, that's very impressive, a very impressive adult years that he spent as he raised his family for sure. No doubt.
thank you.
Well, it's been marvelous because I feel like I've connected. Obviously, in doing this Sports History Now show, it's kind of a love. because I respect all those who came before me and made our great state of Kentucky how it's known. Just like you mentioned, when you go even around the world and people think of Kentucky, and whether it's our sports teams or specifically basketball, it's pretty cool. And to be able to speak with you, Victor, and know that your father, Mike Redd, is a big part of that legacy is pretty cool. And we very much appreciate you for spending time with us this afternoon. And as always, I'm Randy Mills. You just heard an amazing, incredible story of the guy that we do call the original Michael Jordan. Mike Redd, the original Michael Jordan, gravity-defying 1963 Kentucky Mr. Basketball. Thank you very much, Victor. We appreciate your time this afternoon as we bring Kentucky's greatest sports stories alive, one story at a time. Thank you, Victor, for sharing about your father, Mike Redd. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, for having me. It's an honor.
Before we close today, I'd like to recognize Robin Hayden, another of our Sports History Foundation supporters. Patrons like Robin help us to preserve these treasured sports memories, and you can also help our efforts by visiting our website, sportshistoryfoundation.org.